Hi guys, thanks for stopping by. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible because with strict liability, unlike negligence last week, we have slightly less extra information, which is good for you and bad for me, but it's just because I can't find any more to add that's, quote unquote interesting. Right, so with that being said, let's get started. My dog's freaking out. The very first thing is this idea of privity, right? So privity didn't exist until 1915, really. And it's the idea that you can only be negligent for a product if you're the actual purchaser of the product, right? And so what I'm saying here is if I bought you an iPhone, right? And then, hey, calm down, buddy. Right? If I bought you an iPhone and then the iPhone exploded while you were using it, you wouldn't be able to sue Apple, right? Because at the end of the day, only the person that purchased the product is supposed to be responsible for. Um, only the person that purchased the product is supposed to be responsible for, uh, or is the only person that's able to get any sort of damages, right? And so that's how privity started because of this case, Dunlop Tire versus Selfridge, wherein um, a third party tried to sue Dunlop for tires that were faulty. Anyways, that's why it started in 1915. We continue and look at Greenvin versus Yuba. Greenvin versus Yuba is a really important case in expanding product liability, right? Originally, it was kind of a lot of product liability would fall under the idea of negligence. And so in Greenvin versus Yuba, it basically said this, right? That a manufacturer is strictly liable in a tort when he places an article on the market knowing that it is to be used without inspection for defects and proves that a defect that causes an injury to a human being, right? And so what happened in Greenman versus Yuba was this guy got a power saw from his wife, right? And when he got the power saw from his wife, what happened was he was using it one day and something shot off and hit him in the head. A part of the power saw shot off and hit him in the head, right? And so you can see right here. Should he have been responsible? I'm going to open this door. Stop being a jerk. Do something out there, right? When you buy a power saw, you shouldn't have to inspect it for defects. You should buy it knowing that there probably aren't any defects, right? And because he got an injury, well, then there you go. The people that created that product were 100% strictly liable in that case. The second of three things that I want to talk about is the types of product defects that exist, right? Because not all product defects are the same, and why don't you learn the terminology for the three different types? Number one is a manufacturing defect, which probably, I don't know, maybe that was what happened. I don't think that's what happened in Greenman, right? But a manufacturing defect would be it just not meeting its specifications, right? And so, let's go with this. Those Android phones that were exploding a couple years ago, clearly a manufacturing defect, right? Like there's no way that that was the manufacturer's specification. If there's ever an item, and you can't use that for your example, if there's ever an item that doesn't perform to the way that it should, well, then there you go. It's a manufacturing defect, right? Number two is a design defect. I think that's what happened in Yuba, right? They didn't try to eliminate the injury, um, but it wasn't unreasonably dangerous, right? And so, an example of this is, if you don't put, it's kind of like what we were talking about last week with the hand formula. If you don't put, a guard over a chainsaw, well, then you could have prevented an unreasonable risk, right? But that's a bad example because that's unreasonably dangerous. I suppose if you look at the Computer Product Safety Commission, there's so many design defects on like kids' toys, and it's hilarious. I remember last year I was looking and there was like these kids' unicorn shoes, and they didn't stitch the unicorn horn on tight enough on one of the shoes, and it was easy to rip off, and kids were swallowing them, and a couple kids, not good solutions. But there you go. They didn't try to eliminate the risk because they allowed it to be ripped off too easily. And so that would be a design defect, right? The third one is defects due to, and so if you're looking for an example of that, maybe go to the Consumer Product Safety Commission. The third one is a defect due to failure to warn. If it could be foreseen that someone uses a product in a manner, then you have to warn about all possible uses, right? And so bleach buckets, yeah, when they're full of bleach, clearly a kid can't dunk their head in them. But you know that like once the bleach bucket is empty, you have an empty bucket. And so people that make bleach, if you guys know bleach buckets, like I don't know, my mom always had big buckets. Um, if you make bleach, then you also have to provide safety warnings for when it's an empty bucket. And if you don't provide clear safety warnings, then even though you didn't plan on it being used as an empty bucket, it's just what you packaged your bleach in, you're still responsible because of that, right? So I hope those three make sense. And if not, drop by during office hours. All right, the final one is this, which kind of starts teetering into what's going to happen next week. But it's this idea of the cost of safety. And clearly, like, there's always a monetary cost towards keeping people safe, right? Like, it can't be safer without spending some extra money. And so, like, security at a concert helps the concert goers be safe, but then there's higher fees to go to the concert, right? And so if you want to talk about the safest thing to do in terms of safety is to be cancel things that are dangerous, right? Don't sell bleach buckets at all, because then, no one's ever going to be unsafe. But at the end of the day, we need these things to happen. And so it's about, in tort law completely, balancing what is reasonable, right, with what is a reasonable thing to do with what is a reasonable amount of protection to give people. And so, businesses that try to have cheap products, they're going to get punished. But also customers get punished, right? Because if a business is going to sell a product that they might get sued on, well, then they're going to increase the cost of that product so that maybe that maybe they have a way to recover funds in case they do end up getting sued, right? Generally, like we said last week, a reasonable amount should be spent on safety, but at the end of the day, all of those are precautions, and if the cost outweighs the benefit, then it's probably going to be an unreasonable thing, and then you won't do it at all. All right, that's all I got for this week. Answer those three questions. I know I was a little bit more rambly this week, but next week we're going to be talking about tort reform and how they've tried to change tort law. All right, thank you.